We are in 2024, and they're still talking about 2021 and a report about corruption in city oversight for nonprofit human services. This is, not good.
Many of DOI. In 2021, DOI issued report on corruption vulnerabilities in the city's oversight and administration of not-for-profit human services, which identified gaps in the city's general oversight of its contracts with nonprofit human service providers.
Gaps. That means holes, taxpayer money wasted.
In 2021, DOI issued report on corruption vulnerabilities in the city's over. Many of DOI's prior findings and recommendations remain relevant to the findings of this report, which focuses solely on the unique issues associated with the oversight of DHS-funded shelter providers.
When they say DHS, they mean Department of Homeless Services. And DOI, what this thing keeps saying, DOI is the Department of Investigation. New York City is filled with all these acronyms that are basically meaningless. They want to keep you out.
This report identifies a variety of compliance and governance risks at these providers, as well as in the city's overall management of the shelter system. These risks vary in their severity and include conflicts of interest affecting city money. DOI identified cases where insiders at the shelter provider had personal business interests involving the shelter through which they received payments outside their regular compensation. In some cases, shelter executives simultaneously held employment at a private entity, such as a security company, that was hired to provide services at city-funded shelters.
Is that shocking or what?
Poor citywide controls over how city money is used for executive compensation. DOI identified multiple shelter executives who received more than $500,000 per year, and in some cases, more than $700,000 per year, from providers and related organizations. Executive compensation in these cases is funded either largely or in part through city funds. The city lacks sufficient rules concerning how much city money can be allocated to nonprofit executives' salaries.
Is that amazing? We got rules about everything. You can't even have a house. They'll fine you for having a piece of garbage blown on your property, but we have no rules about millions of dollars going to these multiple nepotism-based organizations with hiring their own children and giving millions of dollars to people that are doing campaign funding and, oh, it's my goddaughter, it's okay. This is corruption to its core. The place is just filled with rules for the little people, and then these corrupt people, there's no rules.
Executive compensation in these cases is nepotism, in violation of city contracts. DOI found shelter providers that have employed immediate family members of senior executives and board members, in apparent violation of their city contracts. For instance, one provider that is largely funded by the city employed its CEO's children since at least 2007. This provider subsequently entered into a DOI-managed monitorship agreement. 2. Shelter providers failing to follow competitive bidding rules when
That was Black Veterans for Social Justice and Wendy McClintock and her children. I've confirmed this independently, and it is shocking, very shocking. And the penalty has to be jail. It has to be, because just taking their money away, they've got all these connections, they've done all this graft and kickbacks, so it has to be jail, and it has to be long.
Shelter providers failing to follow competitive bidding rules when procuring goods and services with public money. DOI found numerous cases where shelter providers did not comply with the city's competitive bidding requirements or where it was unclear whether shelter providers conducted true competitive bidding processes. For example, this review identified multiple instances where shelter providers awarded multi-million-dollar building maintenance service contracts to companies affiliated with the building's landlords.
Imagine that. So that's what's happening all over the place here, Bed-Stuy, everywhere. The people rent from somebody and then they give a cozy deal to the maintenance. That's why the places are the way they are. That's why nothing will ever get better until we root out all these corrupt actors And we have to have oversight, just like this report's saying. It's simple. Computers can look at the numbers and find outliers. That's very simple. But obviously, they don't want that. The people that are corrupt don't want it.
For example, DOI issued 32 recommendations to address the system-wide vulnerabilities noted in this report. Included among the key recommendations are: DSS should appoint a Chief Vendor Compliance Officer to provide overall leadership for DSS and DHS's compliance strategy with respect to nonprofit human service contracts, including contracts with shelter providers.
Okay, Google, what is DSS in New York City?
I found a few places near New York. The first one is the Department of Social Services. The second one is NYC Department of Social Services. The third one is Human Services Development Center.
So DSS is Department of Social Services. To create yet another Chief Vendor Compliance Officer seems okay on the face of it, but these things get corrupt in New York City. So we need someone that's above corruption. But who?
Shelter providers should be required to regularly disclose additional information relevant to identifying compliance risks, including potential conflicts of interest for key persons. DSS and DHS should take steps to improve their oversight of shelter operators' expenditures, including by immediately stopping payments for costs that are not accompanied by a proper description and ensuring that relevant agency staff receive regular financial compliance training.
Do you hear that? So they're paying for things that they have no proper description or receipts. Is that I can just put in a bill, $700 million or $1.6 million security cameras, and no proof, nothing? That's how our city operates.
The city should update its electronic procurement and invoicing systems to better enable third-party oversight and centralize key documentation.
That's correct. That is correct. Where is this procurement process? Nothing. The budget is opaque. The independent budget office does very little. They're just cozy part of the system themselves. How independent are they? They create reports that are not that useful, right? I asked a simple thing. The checkbook NYC should summarize by fiscal year the costs of things. And they said they did it. I don't see it. This just goes on and on and on. And we're going to start a part 2 of this video. Unbelievable. This makes me really sad. Sad, sad, sad. Very sad, very sad. New York City is very sad. Peace out.